everybody, Son Goshoku here, and welcome to our audio review of My Hero Academia Season 2 UA Sports Festival Arc. But first, make sure to hit that subscribe button followed by hitting the notification bell so that way you are notified as soon as my content is released. And joining me once again, please welcome back my co-host for My Hero Academia, Rebecca Beck.
Hello.
Alrighty, so you probably noticed at the start here, I said UA Sports Festival Arc. Rather than try to go through the entire Season 2, there's so much to cover in just this arc alone, so Rebecca and I agreed that we're just going to go ahead and start doing these podcasts arc by arc. So that's basically what's going to go on for there. Now then, we're going to start off things here with just the pre-stuff that went on. Basically, I think this arc starts off with All Might explaining to Midoriya that this is his opportunity to go ahead and really show the world what he's got, because the UA Festival is where basically I think like a lot of the first year students, they get the opportunity to like really show their stuff. Like you have some of the best pro heroes looking to possibly recruit, even if you're in your first year. So it's a big opportunity. I remember the training for this. It's hilarious to me about how everyone is doing their training, taking it very serious, and then you got Minata there who is just goofing off. I think what is he looking at like magazines and girls and all that stuff. Like it was amazing to see the contrast between how everyone was taking this serious and he's not. So before we get into the opening and ending theme songs here for this arc, anything you like to add about basically all the beginning of this arc?
Well, for the beginning, yeah, I don't know. The second you mentioned Minata, I was already like, yeah, I think a lot of it we can just talk about during it. Like I have nothing to say beforehand. Like we'll talk
gotcha.
During.
Nothing much to say about the beginning, just standard stuff. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, then let's move on to the opening and ending theme song. So we got a new opening, Peace Sign by, I think this is pronounced Kenshi Yonezu? Or Yonezu? Did I get that right?
Yonezu.
Okay, so yeah, she knows the Japanese much better than me, so I might have to have her correct me. But yeah, this opening reminded me of the video game Mirror's Edge. And now I stated in the Season 1 podcast we did that I felt in terms of opening and ending songs, this show peaked with The Day by Porno Graffiti. But Peace Sign to me is definitely a close second. Now, you mentioned that this song was your jam, so yeah. Why is this your favorite? Would you say this is your favorite opening theme song for My Hero Academia?
Yeah, absolutely. I would. It's just the second I heard it, it's just like, I don't know. It just gets my blood pumping. Like I can't even explain it. It's just so like. Just from the start, like when I first hear it, it's like I like this, and then when the beat dropped, but at the end, like or like da 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 da, like it just like gets me excited and I'm feeling it, and it's just like yeah, definitely it's my favorite one out of all of them.
Awesome. Yeah, my second favorite for it, but I like the song too, just for like the reasons you stated. The ending song, as I'm gonna try my best here, Dakara Hitori Janai? Did I say that right?
Yeah, that's
okay,
good.
By Little G Monster. I thought it was a pretty cool ending song. The art style they used in the ending reminded me of Shintani's shading for his character designs. For those of you that watched the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, one of the biggest things was the art design change for that, and that was because of Shintani. That was the artist, the art director, and that's kind of what this reminded me. But I thought it was a pretty cool, chilled theme song. What about you?
Oh, honestly, can you sing it a little bit? I kind of forgot how it goes.
Like, I cannot, because I don't remember that well.
Oh, I can't remember, but that being said, I guess, because when I was watching My Hero Academia, I was watching episode to episode, right? So, like, I would listen to Peace Sign because Peace Sign is just my favorite. And I'm like, yeah, let's listen to it. But then when it came time to, like, for the ending song, I listened to it the very first time. And then after that, I would skip it. So I would go to the next episode. So it's kind of hard for me. I can't really remember. That's why I was like, can you sing it a little bit? I totally forgot. But yeah, from what I remember, I'm like, oh, like Wait, what's the one with it's like the fantasy one. That's not this one, is it?
That's the next one, and that's actually probably in terms of visuals. That's my favorite ending. I gotta remember the song, but it might be my favorite too. I just love the ending.
Date atashi no hiro. So like, you're my hero. Yeah. So that's okay. Never mind. I thought that was this one.
So we'll definitely be getting
my favorite.
to that one in the next arc then.
Okay.
But
that
yeah,
was the best.
I love that. I love the visuals of that too. Like I almost want to see like an alternate ending of that one, like an alternate timeline.
Yeah, me too. Like it just like you can make a separate like show just out of that one ending. Like I really
what if they were born in that time frame instead of modern day? Yeah, but we'll discuss more of that in the next podcast. So so basically we get to the UA festival, and I'll say the arena. I thought the way the arena was designed, it looked great. I can definitely see the technology's come a lot further than like as a big Dragon Ball fan. They used to, and I used to draw the tournament all the time with the little dots. They do like a lot of colors of pink and blue, just different dots. They're just splashing on there with the paint and everything to simulate an audience. But here it's like they've actually used CGI audience to and put it all over, and it looks like a movable audience. So an audience that's moving. So I thought that looked really cool. So you had Midnight as the host, and she said some very didn't she say some, I forget what it is, but she said some like weird disturbing thing that turned her on, and I was like, okay, that's getting a little creepy.
She's just
here.
Inappropriate in general. But then
right.
Because when you were mentioning the audience, what I remember just distinctly, because in the background, because I always pay attention, like for me, half of the show is like, yeah, it needs good visuals, but if it doesn't have good music, it doesn't captivate me, right? So I usually like just out of what's the English word? What's just out of habit. There you go. Just out of habit, I always listen to like the music that's in the background, right? And when it first showed the UA Sports Festival, the music swore. Did you hear it?
No, I don't think I remember it.
And it bleeped it. It was like, I'm gonna boot you up. I'm gonna F you up.
I gotta go back and listen to that.
And I was like literally my head lifted like, wait, what? But it bleeped it. But it was just weird. Like I was like, oh, okay. And I think with the Japanese, like maybe when they're watching it, they're like, oh, who cares? It's in English. It sounds cool. But to me, it just seemed like awkward. Like, yeah, I'm gonna F you up. And it blocked it up. Or it bleeped it out, And I was like, what?
Well, I gotta check that out.
You gotta go back and watch it.
Oh, yeah. I should state, too, that while I have not, as of this recording, finished all of My Hero Academia in the English dub, I've watched everything in the Japanese version. Haven't read the manga yet. I have watched this entire arc in the English dub, so we'll be able to give you the perspectives of both the Japanese and English dub, basically, for the anime. And then commentators was Azawa, a.k.a. Eraserhead, and Yamada, aka Present Mike. So this was really cool. I like their duo as a commentary, and just how opposite the chemistry of these two. How he's, Yamaha is all over the top as always, and Azawa is just like the cool, chilled, laid back character. So I like them as a commentary duo. What did you think about them?
Oh yeah, for sure, always, because he's always so like, and it's so funny. I keep wanting to call him Radiohead, but I know it's Eraserhead. But I keep thinking, but that's how I say it in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, Radiohead. That's not his name, so I'm like, But anyway, not Radiohead. What was the name again?
Yamada, I think. Yeah.
No, his Present Mike.
Oh, yeah, Present Mike, yeah.
So, yeah, Present Mike, he was always like, whoa, did you see that, folks? Oh, my gosh. And Eraser's head's like, all right.
Yeah, he's
like,
perfect for a commentator. Believe me.
So I like it, like the contrast between them. It's pretty good.
Me being a professional wrestler, one of many who consider the greatest all-time professional wrestling commentator is Jim Ross. And that's because he gets so over the top, saying, by God, that's a terrible impression of him, but he's known for his over-the-topness because he just brings a certain passion when he's calling the action in the ring, and that's what it was really cool, like to have someone like who had that over-the-topness on commentary. So that was really cool. And so this arc takes place between manga chapter 22 to 44 and episodes 14 to 25. So let's go ahead and get in here to the everything that starts. Oh yeah, I will finish up though. One last thing about the pre-stuff before everything gets done. We gotta talk about Bakugo's speech at the beginning of this thing. So once again, I just mentioned I'm a big professional wrestling fan, and one of the things is you have wrestlers who are the bad guys. They're called heel, and the heel wants to get the heel heat. That means the crowd's gonna be booing them because of something they said or did, and that's exactly what Bakugo did. So. And he gets up on stage, and in the Japanese, it's really quiet. In the Japanese version, he says, it's kind of more over the top, too. He's like, I pledge that I'll be number one. And the boos come raining down. Boo! Who's this guy think he is? You got Iida giving him the riot. They like, you should not be this disrespectful. And his response is, at least become a nice bouncing step for me to jump off of. Oh! Oh, man. I like the reasons I love Bakugo, just his attitude. In the English dub, he was so much, who is his English voice actor again? I'm trying to remember. Who was it? I had to look
Clifford.
Chapin.
I'm trying to forget his last. Clifford Chapin.
Clifford Chapin.
Sure,
I'm looking.
Clifford. I remember
through my notes here.
That's actually funny because as I'm looking at it, like, because I was always strictly English dub. So I never really switched back in between like the Japanese dub and the English dub. I only did that during the third season, and I already told you why. We'll talk about it later. But anyway, so when I see he said that in the Japanese, that almost seems, that just seems, oh, he's confident. Like, I pledge, I'll be number one. And somehow it doesn't seem as warranted to get boos from that as opposed to the English dub. Like, I just want to say, I'm going to win. Like, oh, what are you talking about? Like, that makes me, like, when I heard that, I was like, oh, Bakugo, this guy, And at this point, I was sort of like warming up to his character, but not completely there. He was almost like funny to me. Like, he's so over the top, he's just funny. But I wasn't like I didn't really start liking him actually until after his fight. But anyway, yeah, just what he said, like, I just want to say I'm gonna win. I would have, if I was in the stands, I would have started throwing tomatoes or whatever I had in my hand, like popcorns, whatever, like, no, boo, like, like, oh. But the Japanese somehow sounds more like almost like reserved. Like, I pledge, I'll be number one. Like, he's still saying he's better than you, but it's not as bad somehow.
But you know what I remember, I think, in the Japanese version, because it's I think Nobuhiko Akamoto. He's the Japanese voice actor. He did a more like aggressive type voice for this scene, whereas Clifford Chapin, he was very just really chilled back when he did the line.
Yeah.
He's just like. He goes like, and I think they added more dialogue in the English dub because he goes basically just like, I just want to say I'm gonna win. Then they start booing, and he goes like, not my fault that all of you are just stepping stones to my victory. And he says,
I don't remember that part. I remember just when he leaned into the microphone, like, I just want to say, like, I remember that the most. But yeah, well, I didn't
so
catch
chilled
that.
with saying it. But I thought this was a great tone, and as a professional wrestling,
that's what makes him even more arrogant. Because if he was like, I want to say I'm gonna win, you'd be like, boo, I guess, But I just want to say, like, I'm gonna win. Like
he doesn't even see everybody as competition.
Like, exactly. That's what makes it even worse because he says it so nonchalant. Bakugo. I loved it.
And me, like I said, being a professional wrestling fan, he's on the microphone, he's getting the heel heat. That's how you do it. And he did it simple. He just did it simple. He just came out, kept it simple, and generated so much heat. Like, this is, in professional wrestling, this is an awesome thing. So let's keep things moving here to the preliminary event. That's the obstacle race. All right, so the thing about this obstacle race, and I think honestly the main story here of this arc, I told you before we started recording, is you basically, the season 1 was basically all about All Might, Bakugo, and Midoriya. So you just switch out All Might and replace Todoroki here. That's what this was about, and those were the 3 people that stood out in the race. Todoroki starts off really quick, using his ice powers to get a huge advantage. And Bakugo not wanting to be outdone, he uses his explosives to push him forward, and they're doing a great job. And you have a lot of the other characters who are able to specialize, like, what was it? I think Suya, Froppy, when it came to, like, passing from, like, one cliff to another, she was able to use her powers as a frog to get through quickly. But the real big deal comes Midoriya, and I've constantly stated, I praise the way Horikoshi makes Midoriya's character on how well this guy thinks. This guy is always thinking. He's a critical thinker, and he knows how to think himself out of a situation. And I really love that when they're getting towards the end, he realizes that if he takes these mines, because they pass a minefield where you got to be careful, and what he ends up, because I think Todoroki like passed right through it with just ice, but with Midoriya, he puts a bunch of these together, and you think he's wasting time, and you even see some of the other students, they're looking back and they're like, oh, he's wasting time, what is he doing? But what does he do? He puts all these mines together. He takes one of the shields that they blew off from one of those green robots that they put out in the exam, and he jumps on that, and it blows Midoriya all the way up, and he's all like, he said, good, my plan worked, but I don't even know how I'm gonna land. But he ends up landing over Bakugo and Todoroki. And once again, these two not wanting to be outdone, they're just inches away from him at the finish line, but Midoriya ends up winning the race, and with Todoroki and Bakugo coming in at the end, I thought this was great. Just it really showed off Midoriya's thinking skills. It really showed you how Todoroki and Bakugo weren't going to be outdone, and I think it really separated these three from the rest of all the other the UA classes. So yeah, I thought this was really good. A great way to get over, to use another professional wrestling term, getting over, to get over Midoriya's thinking skills once again. Anything you like to add about this obstacle race?
Well, I will say, I guess for the obstacle race, honestly, I was more rooting for Shoto to win. Because it's like, wow, it's Shoto versus Bakugo. They're kind of almost evenly matched in their own way. Like, who's going to win? Which one? But then I'm like, you know what? No, they're going to make it like so that Izuku somehow magically gets in front of them somehow. Like, he'll think of something, right? And that's exactly what happened. And, like, I'm okay with the way it turned out, but at the same time, when I was watching it, I'm like, oh, like, I wish they hadn't have gone with something so obvious, like, oh, of course he's gonna win, or of course he's gonna get in front of them somehow. Like, and so when I saw it felt a little bit exhausting to see. Like, I'm like, oh, all right. But then I kind of liked so what happened afterward, like, because he won, it's like, oh, but you have the highest points and now everybody's after you and everything. So I kind of liked what they did with it there. But the very first time I saw it, I was like, oh, of course he won. Like, I was almost like sort of disappointed, you know?
Oh, wow. I remember you telling me Midoriya was also your boy next to Bakugo.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for sure he is. But like I said, I was just like, oh, like, of course he's the main character. Of course he's going to make it, like, first. But it just would have been cool to see what would have happened, you know?
So at this point, were you growing more of a Todoroki? Of course, we didn't get until later into this arc about more character development with him. But I know last time we both said we had nothing much to think about him other than he had a cool design and he had cool powers. Were you becoming more of a Todoroki fan just through this race alone?
Yeah, I will say I was warming up to him a little bit. And then, of course, as this arc goes on, I started being like, wow, I really like him. And then that just went away quick enough. Like, I guess once I started getting more into Bakugo, I was like, all right, well, Shoto's okay. Like, I like him. And he's still, like, one of my favorites. Like, he's my favorite up there, you know? But, like, obviously Bakugo's up there. And like I said, I not that I don't love Izuku. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's my baby boy. Like, he's going. But then, like I said, I was just like, oh, like, of course he made it. Like, I don't know. Like, but I guess, how should I say? They do make up for it later on in the arc, so
oh, yeah.
I mean, we'll get to that.
Yeah, definitely. This is a breakout. I thought it was a breakout arc for Todoroki's character, but yeah, we'll get more into that. Before we move on to the cavalry battle, oh boy, do I've got something to say about this one. All right. This is the way I watched it the first time in Japanese. I was shaking my head, and I recently just watched it in the English dub, and I'm still shaking my head. So there's this scene where all the Class 1A girls are in cheerleader outfits. And that's because Minata told them that it was a special requirement, and all the girls fell for it. Now, to me, you mean to tell me that all these girls, knowing he's a pervert, knowing he has sleazy bag ways, they just went ahead. Oh, okay, Minata, you said that all the girls have to wear cheerleader outfits. We'll take your word for it. And they didn't think once. No one in this entire group once thought to go to an actual authority figure like All Might Azawa and ask, is this true? They just took his word for it, knowing exactly how he is. So I expect this from Minata's character because it's the character. That's the way Horikoshi designed him. But the way Horikoshi put all these girls out there like that, I felt really made them look stupid. It was like, really, they're not that, are they that gullible? Like seriously, if something seems out of place, wouldn't you always ask somebody of a higher authority, like, is this really true? Because I don't trust him. This, to me, I thought was probably like one of the stupidest things in this arc that I felt really made all the characters of all these girls in the 1A class look bad. Like, every single last one of them fell for it. And it's not like Minata was someone they never knew. They know how he is. They've had enough time. But like, I can't believe, like, I get it. It's fan service. I understand.
But that's what I'll say. I think a lot of people don't think about it the way you do. Like, oh, come on, they look dumb. Because from the start, you're like, because we as the viewers are like, dude, come on, it's Minata, why did you believe that? But I just think people forgave them because it's like, oh, but it's for the fan service and we're into it and we like seeing them in, cheerleader outfits. For me, the only thing I noticed, and so I'm the same as you, I haven't read the manga at all, and I'm debating if I'll keep it that way because I kind of like being surprised with the anime. But anyway, for this scene, I've seen side-by-side comparisons from the animation. I've seen a lot of people kind of complain about it that in the manga, the way that the author drew them, they're a little bit, I don't know what's the word, like a little bit heavier, not heavier, but like the way they're drawn is like a normal girl. Like, oh, like, she's a little, like, bigger in her arms and a little bigger in her thighs.
More
and like
curvy, basically.
Yeah, curvy. There you go. I'm like, I'm trying to think of, like, the word they use. Yeah. So, like, they're a little bit curvier in the manga, but when they transferred it to the anime, they made them, like, super skinny. And just something that I've noticed, like, when I was living in Japan, they have, like, sort of an obsession with, no, we gotta be skinnier. Like, no, you're not a beautiful girl unless your face is, like slanted in this way, and unless, like, you're thin and you have this measurements and whatever. So I feel like when I saw the author drew them that way, I'm like, wow, good for him. You're giving girls, like somebody to look at and be like, hey, like, like, not everybody's like super pin straight. Look, like, these people are like that. But then they like, when it came to the anime, they just switched it right back to like, no, we got to have that Japanese thin. And so I was like, oh, like, I don't know, it kind of made me like turned off a little bit. Obviously, I'm already turned off to fan service, but I was turned off even more like, okay, well, you're already showing these like 15, 16-year-old girls as like objects, sort of. And now you're making it worse where girls watching it are like, oh, I'm supposed to be this thin, or I'm supposed to look like this to be beautiful, So I kind of don't like that scene at all. Not just because of Minata. Minata makes it worse, but even after that, I already don't like it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mention that because one of my guests, who goes by the name of Kat, she mentioned this either during or after we recorded the Dragon Ball Super Broly review. Yeah. She mentioned that was one of the reasons that she liked Cheerleader, because she felt that her design was a throwback to when Toriyama drew his women more curvier or with an hourglass figure type shape. And now, if you look at Toriyama's style, whether you're male or female, because he used to draw the males, pretty muscular, and the women more curvy. Now everybody, both genders are drawn in his style super, super thin for some reason. But anyways, to keep the focus here on My Hero Academia, I think it just didn't make logical sense that they would do that. And I guess, yeah, that's me just looking at it from a logical standpoint. Like with Dragon Ball, I always mention the logic holes in Dragon Ball, so I thought I'd go ahead and bring it up here. And before we move on, did that irk you logically, though, as well, from a logical standpoint, that their characters would be that gullible?
Well, like I said, I didn't even think. I'm one of the ones where I'm like, oh, here we go. He had to put the fan service somehow. And this is how it's going to come. Like, Minato's like, oh, by the way, like, we're going to do this. And you didn't know? You guys are going to look stupid if you don't have whatever. So I knew, like, obviously me sitting there, I'm like, come on, not one of you. Even Sue, wasn't she like, hey, like, Ribbit, this guy's, you shouldn't listen to him, like, he's stupid. Because she's kind of seen more as, like, the smarter one, I think. And Momo is up there, too. But the fact that none of you saw it coming, I'm like, ugh, the only reason they made the girls this stupid for this moment is because the fan service. So I don't look at the characters like they're gullible or dumb. I just look at it like, oh, hey, we're going to throw out character for like just a little bit while we give you some fan service. Is that cool? And everyone's like, that's cool. Nose bleeding, whatever. So like everybody's into it. But yeah, so I didn't look at them like they're gullible, just that this is just another case of fan service,
Gotcha. They'll take the character for the second and just do the scene. You got it. I guess, I always know I like to look at the logic, but let's move on to the cavalry battle here. So basically, Midoriya having won the last one, he had like a 10 million point system, basically a bounty on his head. So everyone was after him, and you got some really cool character development here. I remember with Iida, he's used to teaming up with Uraraka and Midoriya. They've grown to a pretty nice friendship from season 1, but he wants to, more so stand on his own here. And everyone basically teams up. So what I thought was interesting, once again, Bakugo, Shoto, and Midoriya were the ones that stood out constantly. What I really liked about this whole thing and the biggest story that they told here is I forget what his name is. It's one of the characters it's one of the characters, they're from one of the other classes or something like that. And I thought it was hilarious that all the other classes were basically jealous of UA and thought, oh, so you guys are big stuff because you fought villains and everything. And I'm like, yeah, I'm looking like, yeah, they fought villains. They lived to tell that story. So they've got more experience than any of you ever have. And they really, UA really showed them up. But yeah, I forget who it was. So I apologize. I forget the guy's name, but he had,
what does he look like?
He had blonde hair. That's all I remember. I think did he have blonde
and he's
hair?
Always like, you guys in 1A or whatever. I know what you're talking about. And his quirk is stealing everyone else's quirks. That guy?
Was yeah. I forget
I
his
don't
name.
remember his name either.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't write it down in my notes. But the point is, the character is he didn't go all out in the first round because he felt it was ridiculous because it's not gonna make or break you. So that was his way of strategizing, looking at everybody go all out, use their quirks, and then he stole the ribbons that I think they had to have. They I forget whether it was headbands or ribbons, something that you had to have enough of to make it to the final. And the headbands, I think it is. So he basically he steals it from Bakugo, and he's he's talking about how that's all he needs to do, and he's not even trying to make sure he gets all of the ones. He just wants enough to where he can survive. And Bakugo's like, you know what he tells him? He's like, turn around. We're changing missions. And Bakugo to the very last minute is determined, and he gets his headbands back. And Todoroki even gets Midoriya's headbands. And to the last few seconds, I think because Todoroki was, Midoriya, he was working with what's his name? Is it Tomoyama? The one with the raven
Tokoyami?
head. Tokoyami, yeah. He gets him.
I think.
I think it is. You guys know who we're talking about, though, if you're listening. He ends up, he finds a way to get back to Todoroki towards the end and grab, I think it was a weak spot, right? He grabs or a blind spot that Todoroki had because Midoriya thought he grabbed the full points. It wasn't, because they tricked him to make it seem like he wasn't going to grab. He was going to be at the very top. And at the last few seconds, you see Midoriya, Todoroki, and Bakugo. They're all trying to get as many points as they have. The timer runs out and they fall down. And of course, Todoroki's team ends up coming in first place, but Midoriya's team does make fourth place because why? Once again, Midoriya is thinking that he failed the team, but was it Tokoyami? Was it? I keep forgetting the name. Yeah, Tokoyami. Yeah, he tells no, that's not it, because your distraction allowed me to get what we needed to make it to fourth place. And I thought that was really awesome. I just love it. I love these stories of how it once again shows how I thought Horikoshi does a good job of showing Midoriya he doesn't give himself enough credit. He's constantly doubting himself, but it's like, no, because you did that, we were able to make this happen, and that wouldn't happen if you didn't do this in the first place. So I really loved that. And one of the biggest things that stood out to me about this whole part of the UA festival, the festival part, was Aizawa's commentary. He was stating, there is a difference between those that just want to be, complacent. They just want to do enough just to get by, and those that want to reach their limit and go beyond it. And that's what you see. Like, this guy didn't, he planned okay, well, we've got what we need. Now let's just, just do what we got to do just to stay here. But Bakugo, Todoroki, Midoriya, all three of these are out to be the best and get what they need to do, and they want to go beyond. And I loved how they all went down to the very second trying to get it. I thought there was a really powerful message in there, and it shows you can really apply it to life with how people, in life, when you really give it your all and everything, you will go further than someone who's just complacent and doesn't want to go all out. That's the only way you're going to be able to test yourself is going beyond your limits. So I thought this was really incredible. Anything you like to add on about the Calgary battle?
Oh, well, yeah, going off of that, like, I think it shows a lot about the characters, too, because, we found out a little bit, like, Uraraka just wants to be a pro so she can help her parents, and, like, other people have their own reasons for being pro, but that's just it. They're just like, I want to be a pro. It'd be fun. Like, I want to be a pro, or it'd be good. I want to be a pro. But they're like, no, I don't want to just be a pro. I want to be the number one hero. Like, when people are afraid and they're in trouble, when they look my way, they're going to feel better because I'm the number one hero and I'm there for them. Like, I am here, so you definitely see that with Izuku and definitely Bakugo, where again they have their own reasons for being pro, and with Shoto, I think for him it's sort of daddy issues. Like, he's like, I want to be pro because you're like, I don't like you, I want to be better than you, sort of thing. But they all have their own reasons for wanting to be number one, and you definitely see that with each character. And yeah, that's all I want to add.
For sure. We definitely have more to talk about daddy issues later when it comes to Todoroki.
Yeah.
So basically the third and final part of this whole thing is a tournament. Now, that being said, as a Dragon Ball fan, going back to the original Dragon Ball, I loved all those classic Tenkaichi Budokais, known as the World Martial Arts Tournament in the English dub. I love Yu Yu Hakusho, another classic shonen manga tournament, the Dark Tournament, or even in Yu-Gi-Oh, the Battle City Tournament. I love tournaments, and I love that this was one of those tournaments where you actually have eight matches, and it goes down to 4, the semifinals. So I like that this is one that goes all the way through, doesn't get interrupted and stuff. And I'm a big WWE fan. I love the old King of the Rings from the 90s. So I was really hyped up about this. So now I guess I'm gonna have to call this almost like the way I do my wrestling podcast, where I'm gonna go ahead about the match and then send it off to your perspective. So our first round match is Midoriya versus hopefully I say this right, Hitoshi Shinso.
Yeah.
So basically, this is the guy that has he's like purple and blue hair. So and I put down here in my notes that I said before the fight, Eijiro and Shoto they withdrew because basically they felt like they weren't in control of themselves when they were progressing, and they warned Midoriya, or one of them, I forgot, they warned Midoriya, don't answer any of his questions. And the thing about this fight right here is Midoriya does exactly just that, and he basically he looks like he's about to walk out because the guy is controlling him, and I think they say eventually all the spirits that have held his power that All Might gave him, one for all, they find a way to like allow him to burst some of the smash energy through his 2 fingers, which breaks them, but it allows him to snap out of it. And Midoriya does a tremendous job of not answering this guy's question. So I like the psychology, the strategy in this battle, and eventually Midoriya gets the better of him, and I think tosses him out using the same throw he did on Bakugo. And once again, it was pretty much hinted at by Aizawa, saying, yeah, if this is hand-to-hand combat, Midoriya is the much better fighter. But it was the similarities between these two, and what I got out of this fight is it really goes to show that sometimes there are some people you can't help out there, even if you really want to, because Midoriya knew that this guy had the same issue. He had a quirk that really wasn't that useful useful when it came to combat. But he's like, if I tell my situation, it wouldn't help his. So I thought there was a very interesting dynamic that Horikoshi put into this fight. But what I think really stood out is the fact that so many pro heroes afterwards, they were looking at Shinso's quirk, and it's like, man, I wish I had that. And I really love that even though he mentioned he had one that's perfect for a villain, he did not he doesn't want to use it for a villain, to be a villain. He literally is, a guy that wants to use it for good. And I think it really goes to show the saying in life how everyone on this planet is born with some type of talent. It's just up to you to bring it out. And I think that was like kind of eye-opening for him to see that, wow, there are people that want my quirk, so there is some way that I can use it. And I don't know if he comes back or not, if he's come back in the fourth manga, but I think it's a really good way. And I like the way this whole fight ended up working out and everything. What would you like to add on?
Oh yeah, I mean, from the start, I was like, I was mad that Izuku already knew. Like, it's different if you fell for the bait and you had no idea. Like, you're just like, oh, what's his power? What could it be? And then you talk. But you went into the fight knowing exactly what his quirk was, and you fell for it anyway. And I guess for me, when once he fell for it, I'm like, I'm sure he's gonna get out of it somehow, right? But then I didn't expect like the lengths that they went for him to get out of. Like, it wasn't just like, come on, I can control it. Oh, I'm out. It was like, I'm about to lose. Here comes like the spirit, like the power of all the ones who had One for All before you, helping you get out of it. Like, I didn't expect it to be like to that degree. But yeah, it was definitely cool seeing, what was his name again? Hitoshi, right? It was definitely cool seeing his quirk. And again, like you said, somebody that you would totally think would be perfect as a villain, who's like, no, I don't want to use these powers to be a villain. Like, I want to be a pro. And I mean, maybe I'm going off a little bit, but like that's what surprised me even with Bakugo, where it's like Bakugo is, you would think he's like, oh, loser, you're an idiot and you're whatever. But for some reason, he wants to help people and he wants to be a pro hero. And then, yeah, that's why I think Hitoshi's very like interesting, because it's like he has this power that can so easily be used for evil, and he wants to use it for good, and he wants to help people. So I just enjoyed that fight anyway, even if it was sort of like, oh, come on, Izuku, why did you fall for that? I enjoyed watching it anyway.
Well, I know I'll have more to say about some logic issues later on when it comes to Midoriya and fighting. But moving on to match number 2 here, we had Shoto Todoroki versus Hanta Sero. Now, alrighty, in professional wrestling, I may have mentioned to you before, basically when we weren't recording, you have in WWE and professional wrestling in general, you have what's called jobbers. And these professional wrestlers' job is to basically do that. They're to go out there and make who they're facing look good, to put the guy over as the biggest thing since sliced bread or whatever. That's what this fight was to me. I mean, Todoroki just went boom, it's over, created this big giant ice avalanche, ice bird, and it was over, done. Todoroki's out and on to the next round.
But let me think, because wasn't Shoto he walked in there angry, and I can't remember why exactly, but that's why he just like, he totally ended him. Like, he just like put ice all over him and whatever, but I can't remember why he went overboard. Did he just talk to his dad or something like that? I
think it was, but you see, they split everything between him and Endeavor, and all that stuff is all like split up through between each rounds. But I'm just gonna save talking for that when we get to the actual fight where all that comes to head, and I'll go into his backstory there. But yeah, that's most likely probably why he was angry, and bam, he even apologized at the end. Though he said sorry.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, I
overboard.
remember him being like, oh, I think I overdid it. Like, and we're like, you think, like
could have
they had to like close it down.
The audience.
Yeah, like they had to close it down to like clean up after him. Like they were like, okay, well, this is suspended for an hour or whatever until we clean this ice up. Like he just went like overboard, and he realized. That's what I was thinking. Like he must have walked in angry, but I couldn't remember why.
Yeah, that's a lot of water. Basically, once it's melted.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on here to let's see, what was the next fight we had here? I believe it was Denki Kaminari versus I think the name is pronounced Ibara Shizozaki, if I said it right.
Shiozaki.
All right, so I remember I was watching this with my stepfather, and both of us were like, dude, get your head in the game. People are here to make a good impression on the pro heroes. This is a stepping stone for you of an opportunity. And he's basically finding this chick to be very like, oh, she's so beautiful, and like, get your head on the game. Well, she took great advantage and knocked him the heck out, I think. Basically using her tree. I mean, shoot, Christmas tree. Hey, Christmas trees have got. Imagine this girl could make a ton off of just selling Christmas trees from her own hair. I thought that her design was cool, but yeah, she makes short work of him, and once again, a great contrast of showing you where some people's priorities are. So I was just shaking my head at this whole fight. Yeah, what was your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, for me, right when I saw her, I wasn't even sure what her name was. You said it was Ibara Shiozaki, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it left me wanting kind of to see more of her. Like, I was like, oh, why wasn't she put in, group 1A? Because obviously 1A we see the most of, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, man, like, it would have been nice to see her. I wonder, like, I want to see more of what she can do. Obviously, she has the powers of trees and whatever, but it was just really interesting to see her. So I liked the fight. Yeah, Kaminari, poor guy.
I wonder, does she get dandruff or like hair lice, or could she just cut it all off and regrow it? Like what? How does it like having hair what is it?
Trees for hair. I don't know. Yeah, just looking at it looks uncomfortable, and I bet it's heavy too.
Looks like it's itchy.
Because she has long hair, so it's not just short. It's
hitting you in the neck.
Yeah, so I don't know, like, are you immune to your own quirk? No. Like, right. It must scratch you, it must hurt. Like, it seems uncomfortable.
But I don't remember her being anywhere part of this, and I don't know if she comes back in season 4, so I'm going to say she's there, so it's probably not worth, honestly, she's just a character that was there to fill in time.
Yeah.
So probably not worth speculating. Let's move on to the next fight here. Tenya Iida versus Mei Hasume. Actually, I didn't recognize, I watched it first in Japanese, all 3 seasons, and then when I went back and recently watched the English dub of this, I was like, hey, I recognize this girl, because she becomes a more important part of the story in season 3. So I was like, I don't know, like, she went past my head, like, just went over my head the first time. So this is basically one big giant 10-minute advertisement. I thought it was hilarious. She took advantage of Iida's, wanting to be honorable and trustworthy, because she said she wanted to give him like some weapons to use, but she just basically dominated him with like all her weapons and she used it as a big advertisement. And then when she was done, she's like, okay, I'm done, and she eliminates herself, and that's how Iida wins. The thing that's funny too is because I think that's what she wants to be. That's her goal. She wants to make gear for the heroes, so she's not really caring to be the top person. She got what she wanted. She got to show off all her gadgets in a 10-minute demonstration, and that's it. So I thought the way the comedy played out here was well done, and just the idea that Iida steals it, like she's like, I meant no harm, you still won without doing anything. I thought this was hilarious. What's your thoughts on this? I would call it a fight, but what's your thoughts on this 10-minute advertisement?
Well, yeah, I think, like, I appreciate people like that somehow, where I feel like had I been in this tournament, I'm like, okay, like, I'm going to fight, I'm going to do my best. Maybe I won't win, but, I'm going to fight, And I like when people when they go into, like, a tournament or, like, like a contest, being like, well, I'm going to get myself out there. So, like, my whole thing, I'm not trying to win. I just want you to know this is what I can do. And I forget what it's called. It's, is it the business? Because UA, there's the pro heroes pro heroes in training, and then there's like a business advertisement section, and then there's another section of the people who want to make like the tools and stuff for them. But I forget what it's called.
Yeah, I forgot too. I didn't put it in my notes, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I like a person who, like, okay, Mei, she knows who she is. Like, listen, I just want to make, like, the best tools ever, and I want everybody to have them. And, hey, like, this is how I'm going to show you that I'm awesome. And she's just, like, takes the whole match and just creates it, like, like you said, like, just this, like, 10-minute advertisement of herself. And I have to admire people like that, because for me, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm just going to fight, or I'm just going to, like, do the tournament. But she's like, no, like, let me show you what I can do. And I really liked it. Yeah, it was funny. Like you said, the comedy of it worked. It was funny.
Right, definitely. And then next we had Yuga Ayama versus Mina Ishido. Hopefully
Ashido.
Ashido.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please forgive me on my pronunciation. That's why Rebecca Beck is here to correct me. Honestly, sorry to say, this might have been the most forgettable fight for me. Not that I'm saying it's bad, but literally, like, as I was making my notes before in preparation of this podcast, I actually had to really go to the description and like, what happened in this fight exactly? Like, I kind of remember the basic gist of every other fight but this one, and basically in the end, she ends up getting her acid. Yeah, it's the acid that she can shoot out, and she gets it on his belt, where he's able to shoot his belly blast and knocks him out. So yeah, it was just there, and I think that's all there was. They didn't a lot of the fights that honestly didn't matter that much to the story and was just filler. They were just kind of showing highlights of how they win, and they weren't even showing full fights. But yeah, anything you wanna add on about this? I'll just say, cool way she won.
Yeah, and like you said, I actually like that they add these kind of fights in the show anyway, because it's like you could have easily just skipped to, okay, here's Izuku versus Shoto or whatever. But I like that they show these little things in between because it makes it feel more real as you're watching it, you know. But yeah, that being said, nothing else really happened, but I was surprised. Like, I never saw, or I guess I never paid attention to Mina in action, her actual like powers, and I always just felt like, oh, you know, you always see her running around or whatever, but I've never actually seen her use her acid, or at least never paid attention to it. And to see her use it, it made me think like, whoa, like, I don't know, like even her power can sort of be used for evil. Like, you would think like acidic, you know, she throws acid, she can hurt people, she can, like, it's kind of, it was surprising, I guess, to see. Like, I was like, oh, all right, wow. But it was over just as quick because, like you said, it was filler. But yeah, it's just interesting to see.
And by filler, folks, we mean just there to just keep the story going before, just to put something in between right there. Not that it was actually not part of the original manga. But that being said, though, I will say it was great that in this arc that we did get to see some of those characters shine more than did in the first season. But moving on, Tokoyami versus Momo Yazoru. Did I say that right? Yayorozu. All right, I got a little tongue twister there. But
Yayorozu. I'm like thinking
the thing about this now, like I said, I thought she was one of the better characters, honestly, and everything. But she got jobbed out here. Horikoshi jobbed her out. Did not, and I love the strategy. You know, so many times, especially being a Dragon Ball fan, they just wasting time. I love that these people were going in for the kill. Let's get them out of here. Tokoyami showed off his shadow strength, basically, and just kept, you know, pushing her back, even though she had her shield up, kept pushing her back, and before she could really get going, she's out of bounds. Did not give her a chance. I love this strategy. I love that he's like, get in, take you out, so I can preserve my energy for the next fight. I love the strategy. It'd be nice if we see more of this in Dragon Ball and everything, instead of let's just play around with him for 40 minutes and then I decided to go with my full power. So I like that he didn't held back and just went right to it. But I wasn't expecting Momo.
Momo, just call her Momo. Yayorozu.
I was expecting Momo to get jobbed out this quickly, but somebody had to lose. And hey, this was another good. I thought Tokoyami really showed out. We got more character development from him in this arc, so that was good for that. Anything you want to add about this fight? Were you surprised by the outcome of this fight, especially that easy, that quickly?
Well, I didn't expect it to be that quick, but I will say with Tokoyami, I just like you were saying, like he played it smart, where he's like, listen, yeah, I can try to fight her and like prolong this, but let me just like end it as quick as I can. And for me, I was just more shocked on Momo because she was always like seen as, you know, oh wow, she's like the top of her class and she's really she's smart. This to me seems like, you know how some people are sort of book smart, but they're not street smart? That's what I looked at her in this fight. I'm like, so she's like, oh, I have to protect myself, so I get a shield. But then didn't you think that he's pushing you back? Did you think about what's happening around you? No. You're just thinking of the one target you have is to beat him. But you're not thinking of what he might be doing or what's going on behind you, you know? So for me, I almost saw her like just as naive, or like I said before, she's more book smart, not street smart. That's what I started seeing her as, you know. But yeah, so it was cool. I liked seeing Tokoyami fighting. I like him as a character, and yeah, it was pretty cool.
Cool. And we'll move on to this fight, which I thought was one of the best fights. And it's a shame that it basically, like I said, it's one of the fights that was put there kind of just to fill time, because they were focusing more on what was going on basically backstage, and we were just getting cuts of this fight. But this was a barn burner right here. Hopefully I don't butcher these names. Eijiro Kirishima versus, is it Tetsutetsu? Did I get that right?
I'm trying to think, because what I remember, it was what was it? Like Eijiro Kirishima, and then versus Tetsutetsu.
Yeah.
Tetsutetsu. Yeah, they're Tetsutetsu. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it.
But yeah,
Tetsutetsu.
But the both of them are basically, they had the exact same powers to Harden, whereas the other one, he kind of almost looked like him, similar, but had sharper teeth, I think. But Tetsu, I'm just gonna say Tetsu, and times what, 4 or 5, whatever.
Yeah, Tetsu times 4.
But yeah, he like has this really cool where he looks like he becomes made of like metal or iron and
or steel or something. Yeah,
and these guys clobber the crap out of each other. They are just knocking each other back and forth, boom, boom, back and forth. Like it to me, it's kind of like Piccolo versus 17. That's one of the coolest Dragon Ball fights, but it wasn't like high stakes important as some of the other all-time fights. But that's kind of like a fight that some people forget about. Like, that was a really cool fight, and that's kind of what this fight reminded me of here. This is like one of those cool fights. It didn't mean as much into the story, but it was really cool. I enjoyed it, but they had to cut away backstage. The focus was more on the backstage, and even the way they ended it, it just ended up being a draw. And eventually they end up doing a tiebreaker. We're kind of skipping a little bit here, but they did a tiebreaker arm wrestling match, and I think Tetsu times to the 4th or 5th power. His body gave out on him, but I did love the sportsmanship at the end of they shook hands. That was really cool. Definitely, I think one of the best fights we got in this arc that unfortunately was just there to be constant cutaways as opposed to seeing a whole episode of it. But what was your thoughts on this?
Oh yeah, like you were saying, I like, cause I liked Kirishima from the start. Like, from the second I saw him as a character, I was like, oh, I really like him. And it was interesting seeing him being like, I'm gonna fight, I'm gonna go all out. And then it was so funny to see him be completely evenly matched with this guy. And it's funny because I heard, so the author, he didn't think that this character would like matter much or be that popular, so that's why he just made like a ridiculous name, like, let's call him Tetsu, like, haha, that's funny, it just sounds weird. And then people liked him so much, he brought him later on, and he was like, man, I wish I hadn't picked such a dumb name. Like, I remember reading that in an interview, and I was like,
let me ask you, a lot of people really like Kirishima, so I mean, when you bring a character that's similar to that, that's probably what they think. A lot of people already want to see these two team up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because even seeing them fight, it was sort of like, well, they're really evenly matched, and because people like Kirishima already, to see Tetsu, it was sort of like a not the spitting image of him, but like his quirk is the same, his personality is roughly the same, So yeah, I think that's why people probably liked him so much, because you like Kirishima, you probably like Tetsu, or however you say his name.
Right.
But yeah, so then just watching it, I really like you said, where they were super into it, like, they're fighting, and then in the end it was just sort of like this like solidarity, sort of like, oh wow, you did so good, and they're like friends almost, so I really like the sportsmanship with that. Other than that, it was just funny to see sort of like them evenly matched, and I liked watching it.
Nice. And then before, of course, in between their actual fight and the arm wrestling tiebreaker, we had a fight that did get a whole episode dedicated to it. Katsuki Bakugo versus Ochaco Uraraka. So Uraraka is one of the characters at this point that had a lot more character development than a lot of the other characters, and this was probably a as you were you brought to my attention when we spoke about this before recording several weeks before this recording. You told me that this was quite the controversial fight in the My Hero Academia community. So one of the biggest whole things is, I guess the idea was that Uraraka, because she's a girl, hopefully Bakugo takes it easy on her. And I even told my stepfather, I know in real life most times genetically men are stronger than women, but I feel like in a world like this, that gap is severely shrinked, basically, because with everyone having special quirks and powers, I think that kind of evens the playing field out a lot more. So I don't think there was any reason to be concerned. But this is the story that plays out in the crowd, because Bakugo, and I think even the build up before this, Uraraka wanted to do this on her own, not take any of Midoriya's notes, and there was a lot of concern how would this be, because they knew how Bakugo was, and Bakugo didn't even know Uraraka had been there, didn't know what her name was. And as the fight's going on, he's using all these different explosions left and right, and everyone sees that Uraraka is on the go because she just can't get her gravity quirk to work, and the crowd is thinking, this is terrible, how could you be doing this, take it easy on her. The entire crowd starts booing, and I really love that basically Eraserhead, he comes in and he shuts the entire crowd down, including Yamada or President Mike, because he was thinking that this is kind of going too far here and everything, and he's going like, hey, listen, if you, especially you heroes that have an issue with this, you should probably find a new profession. And he's like, he brings to attention, don't you see that Bakugo is taking this fight very seriously, and it's revealed basically that it's not so much Bakugo is toying around with her or being too rough with her, it's that she's actually putting up such a great defensive fight against Bakugo. He has her on the ropes, he's having a hard time trying to figure out what she's doing, and eventually it's revealed all the rubble was made as, it was sort of kind of like Piccolo's Hellzone grenade, going back to that 17 and Piccolo fight where he's shooting all these key blasts randomly, and 17's like, what, dude's just getting lucky, just gonna wait until he hits me, and he sees, oh, he's fully surrounded. And that's what happened. Bakugo fell right into her trap of creating enough rubble to where she can make it float and go ahead and crash it down on Bakugo, and it's a close one, but Bakugo manages to explode, basically blow it up, and she tries her best to come back at Bakugo, but it was too much. She overexerts herself and passes out, basically because she gave it her all, and Bakugo ends up winning because she can't continue. So it's pretty much a TKO. To me, this was very essential for Uraraka's character, that, she's just not a side character to be there with Midoriya. She can hang. The girl can hang. And honestly, it felt like the whole crowd being against Bakugo, to me, that was undermining her toughness and undermining how tough she can be. And when you really think about it, they're training to be heroes. They're training to take on villains. Do you really think a villain's going to give a care whether they're facing a guy like Bakugo or a girl like Uraraka, and like, let's take it easy? No, these villains are evil, and they will take whatever opportunity they can win to win the fight and everything. So I thought this was very great at showing the toughness of Uraraka, showing how great she can strategize, and you best believe Bakugo gained respect. There's a great storyline in WWE NXT, their developmental program. Wrestler Aleister Black, he takes on the Velveteen Dream, and Velveteen Dream demanded that Aleister Black say his name. He refused to say his name. They had this great, amazing match, and at the end, he gets on the microphone, he says Velveteen Dream, acknowledges that he got respect for him out of that match, and that's what I liked about it. It took me back to this because Bakugo at the end says her name, Uraraka, and he even talks to Midoriya thinking that, was this your plan? He says, no, Uraraka came up with that on her own. And to me, that was Bakugo's way of, almost like nodding his head like, I didn't know her name, but I got respect for her now because that was one heck of a plan. And he was like, yeah, he had it, but but at the same time, she gave him a little bit on the defense and everything. So I thought this was tremendous and tremendous for Uraraka's growth as a character. Now, what would you like to add on about this fight? Because like I said, I remember you brought to me, you thought that there were fans in the community that thought this was like he was being abusive to her or something. And what did you think overall in terms of Uraraka's growth in this?
Oh, well, I mean, first of all, like I remember right before she actually goes out to fight, she was talking to Deku in one of those like rooms, the waiting rooms or whatever. And then just when she turned around to him and she like put like a shaky thumbs up, like, all right, like here I go. Like I remember I had like that secondhand nervousness, like as if I was the one going. Like I was like, oh man, like I felt that nervousness she felt because again, in her head, she's like Bakugo is nuts and like he's gonna attack like full on. And she had that fear. So when I was watching her, I was like, I'm interested to see how it's gonna play out. I didn't know. I was thinking maybe Bakugo will win, but honestly, like maybe they're gonna do the whole underdog thing. Like, oh, maybe Uraraka does something amazing and then she ended up winning. Like, I don't know how this is gonna go. And as I was watching it, like I'm seeing like Bakugo attacking her. And for me, I looked at it sort of like arrogant. And I feel bad to say because I was like the people in the crowd where they were like, you should go easy on her. But I was like, man, you don't have to go that hard on her. Like you're going to win probably. Like you don't have to go that hard. So I sort of had the same. I wasn't so angry at him. Like, what are you doing? Because I was like, oh, well, at least he's, he's trying. He's like, fighting her back, and it's like how you said, a villain isn't going to take it easy on you. So in his mind, he's like, I'm going to go hard on everybody, regardless of who you are. I don't care. So I took it that way. Like he's going hard on her because he's like, no, like it doesn't matter if you're weak, if you're strong, I'm going to go my 100%. I'm not going to like dial myself back because you're weak. So I sort of saw it as arrogant and I'm like, man, dude, like he's really going hard on her. I feel bad for her kind of. And then Aizawa just shut me down too. Like Eraserhead's just like, hey, like you guys aren't looking at it. Like he's treating her like an equal and he's taking this very seriously. He's not looking at it like, oh, who cares? Like he can see she like every time she fell, she got up and she ran towards him. And that was her strategy. If I go hard on him, he's not going to realize what I'm doing in the background. And what I'm doing in the background is lifting these rocks up. So I'm going to go hard on him every time. He's not going to realize. And then guess what? Her strategy, it worked. I mean, it's tough that Bakugo, it wasn't that he did end up being strong enough to like shoot up and, protect himself. But her strategy of like trying to get him focused on her and not the rocks, that worked. It just, in the end, he was stronger than that even. And I do remember like he shot up all those explosions and his hand was kind of shaking. And I don't know how the Japanese dub went, but with Clifford, his voice was like, that was close. Like yeah. He was like shaken, and for me seeing that, I was like, woof, like dang, like Uraraka. And the way that it played out where she's like, I can still fight. And then she just gave out. Like that to me, I gained even more respect for her because I was like, she did give it her all. She wasn't just like, oh, I want to be a pro so I can get money. It was like, no, in this battle, like I want to be like Deku. Like I look up to him and how would he do it? He would fight and he would give his all and he would use whatever strategy he can. So I'm going to go for it. And even I gained more respect for her too. And it was this fight that completely, I did a 180 with Bakugo because I was like, wait a second. Have I been looking at him wrong this entire time? And I have been. Where when he's like, shut up, Deku, get out of my way, get out. Like, he looks down on Deku because he's like, or not down on Deku, what should I say? He's kind of like up in Deku's face and wants Deku to get away from him because he thinks Deku's looking down on him. Like, oh, you're being nice to me. Are you just looking down on me? No, like you're so messed up that you think that because someone's nice to you, they're looking down on you. And even with this, where it was like he was fighting Uraraka, but in my head, I'm like, oh, he's being arrogant. He's just fighting her to kind of like show off or whatever goes in my mind, during that battle. In the end, it was like, no, he was taking it seriously and he looked at her seriously, like, oh, she's giving me her all. Like I'm giving my all too, and then in the end, I don't remember in what context it ended up coming up where people were saying like, oh, she's weak or something. And he's like, what about her do you see as weak? Like, and I can't remember exactly how that was said. And was it the anime or did I see a snippet or something from the manga? But like in that moment, and it's like you said, he knew her name. Like, okay, that's Uraraka, because she kind of proved herself to him. And then in the same way, that's how Kirishima was. At first it was like, who's this guy? Get out of my face. I don't like you, whatever. But then when Kirishima started like treating Bakugo with respect, always like teaming up with him and whatever, like at one point he's like, okay, that's Kirishima. Like he started calling him more by name. And that's what it was with Uraraka. At first it's like, hey, round face. And now it's like, Uraraka, what are you doing? Or hey. So like he gained this respect for her. And I in turn gained this respect for Bakugo because I just completely saw him as a different person before. And now... and yeah, from then on, like going forward, I was always like, wait a second, Bakugo's acting like this, but what is he saying behind? And that's when I started to kind of see the similarities where people are like, oh, like Bakugo is like a Vegeta from Dragon Ball. Like for sure, he's like that tsundere type. I'm like, no, he's not. He's just a straight up like jerk. But actually, Bakugo is that tsundere type where just because he says something out loud, he like doesn't mean that that's what he's feeling on the inside. And that's what I started to see about him. And after this fight is when like it all started for me. This is when I started to like Bakugo more because I was starting to understand him more. And yeah, the whole fight was just, it was amazing. And going back to what you originally asked me, where there was like
the controversy,
the controversy
fight,
like he was so abusive because I don't want to go too far into the whole shipping thing, but because people ship Ochaco with Bakugo, people ship them and they're like, how can you ship them just because they had that one fight and it was abusive? He was beating her. Like they were sparring. First of all, nobody was gonna die. Well, hopefully, right?
Yeah, that's why Midnight
right?
was there. Her orders were to step in
if
death
step in if it
looked
gets
like
too
it was
dangerous.
a
Yeah. So like nobody was gonna die. They were sparring, but they were taking it serious as though this was real life. If a villain's coming at me, how am I gonna act? I'm gonna be I'm gonna use all my powers. Why would you hold back in a real fight? You wouldn't. So then in this match, don't hold back either. And so that's what I looked at it, where I'm like Katsuki took her seriously, and obviously she took him very seriously too, and then they kind of gained this mutual respect. And there's just controversy in that, like in the whole fandom, like, well, no, he's abusive, like how could he like hit a girl like that, or how could he be like that with people? Like he treated her like an equal. That's like, I mean, I don't want to go too far into this either, but it's the same problem with certain people who think what feminism is. Feminism isn't down with men are terrible and we're greater. Feminism is, listen, we all want to be equal. Like, let's treat each other as equals. Like you get equal pay, I get equal pay, and this is like, let's go forward with this, you know? And that's what I look at it, where I just feel like it's funny to say, like, if I look at Katsuki, he's sort of like a modern feminism, like a modern feminist, sort of like, hey, I don't care who you think you are. I'm going to treat you on this level. Like, you can't be like, don't attack me, I'm frail. It's like, no, you're on my level. We're going to fight together. I'm going to treat you like an equal. And that's where I gained respect for them individually and as a couple. But I mean, that's going into a totally different thing. So yeah, this whole fight was just amazing to me. Yeah,
definitely. I agree. And honestly, before even the fight was begin, I'm like, ooh, that's going to be an interesting fight. But I was hoping that Uraraka would. I figured Bakugo was going to make it to the end, but I was just hoping Uraraka would have a great showing and everything.
Me too, like a comeback, and she just like wins somehow. But it was cool the way it panned out too.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, it allowed you to show that she can stand on her own 2 feet, and that was the most crucial part. And there we go. And in fact, Bakugo had to take her serious. There you go. But
actually, going on with that, because afterwards, after the match, like she's in the waiting room and whatever, and I remember she called her parents, and for me, I really like this because it's like growing up, I always had this thing, like I was like afraid to fail. So sometimes that would stop me from even trying, you know, like, oh, like maybe I shouldn't give my all in this fight. Like I'm trying to think of myself as Uraraka, right? Like maybe I won't give my all in this fight because like I'm probably still going to lose. Like, I don't know, whatever. So, I liked that it showed, listen, she gave her all and she lost, but it was okay. Like, it's okay to fail. You gave your all, and you're going to come back even stronger next year or next match or whatever happens, you know? So I love that she's like crying on the phone, like, I'm sorry, like, I tried my best. Like, her dad's like, wow, we saw you on TV. You did so great. Like, you to the very end, you were trying so hard, honey, and we're just like so proud of you. Like, to me, I'm like, dude, I really like that they showed this, because there's going to be some kids watching this anime where they're like, hey, you know, like, I like, look at, even these heroes can fail, and it's okay, like, that you can keep going on and you can keep trying, and things will get better. So I just love that they added that scene in the end where she's like crying to her parents, like, oh, you know, like, it was a really great scene.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. That was really one of the most touching things in this arc, seeing that her father was just so glad to see the amazing performance she put in and everything, and also it's just great. And I know both you and I have had supporting parents and everything, so we can relate to that and everything. So I think it really is touching and everything to see that. And I also thought the Japanese voice actor Anye, I think it's Anye Sakura, and the English voice actor Lucy Christian. Sorry if I butchered some of those
Lucy
names. I thought they both did a tremendous job in that emotional moment in that delivery. So basically hats off to them. Now let's move on to another or is this the other? Another. You're gonna go on to the semifinal round. So it's back to the old get them out quick fights, basically. I think it was. No. Actually, no, it was the next. No, okay, I'm moving on. Sorry, I skipped.
I was looking,
quarterfinal.
I was like,
Quarterfinal. Sorry,
I
got part of the notes on my screen, and I had accidentally. It was already down to the semifinal round. So no, staying in order here. So another big fight, and honestly, I'm gonna say I have to imagine one of the greatest fights in all of My Hero Academia. Izuku Midoriya versus Shoto Todoroki. This had been building up for a great part of the arc, and this is a great time to talk about all the pre-stuff that built up into this. And like I said, we mentioned in season 1, all we thought Todoroki was a cool design and cool powers, and this arc really developed his character, and there was a lot more to say, and now here's our chance to say it. So the whole idea is early on, Midoriya is asked by Todoroki, what is his connection to All Might? Is he his love child or something?
I love it. Are you All Might's secret love child or something? Like, just the way he put it. Like,
and even if I was, you probably wouldn't even believe me at all. Yeah.
I loved it.
And we eventually end up getting the backstory all throughout the arc of Todoroki, and it even plays out in this fight. So basically, the whole backstory here is that his father, Endeavor, who is is basically the number 2 ranked hero, with All Might being number 1. And I can say honestly, when these first two interacted, you could definitely see All Might's this cheerful guy, and even though and I think it once again you can apply it to life. Why some people succeed with their attitudes and others don't make it as far as they could be because they kind of hold themselves back with their own thinking. You look at All Might. Yes, he loves attention, he loves the camera, but the one thing he always talks about is the people, being there for the people and trying to look strong for the people to give them hope. Then you have Endeavor. He's kind of like, my son, I'm gonna beat All Might. If I can't beat All Might, then I'm gonna have my son beat All Might. And he's so obsessed with trying to outdo someone else that it's like, it's like, where's your focus at? And it reminded me a lot of the Goku and Vegeta rivalry, almost like Vegeta was always obsessed with outdoing Kakaroto, whereas Goku's focused on himself as a martial artist to just want to be the best. And you really see it. Like, Endeavor is an incredible, powerful hero, but All Might, there's just something a lot more lovable about All Might and everything that I think the people can connect with, as opposed to Endeavor. But man, this is some deep stuff here. So the story here is that Endeavor, basically, he brought from Todoroki's mother's parents. He brought her, married her, and basically only wanted to conceive a child with her for the purpose of creating a strong warrior because of her ice powers. And he's very abusive. Now, this is where I think we can get more into what people were fearing about that Bakugo and Uraraka fight, because this is totally the better example here, where it's just plain wrong. I mean, he's an abusive father, an abusive husband, and part of me, as I'm looking through, it's like I watched it the first time in Japanese, and then the second time getting through the English dub, I was able to get a second look, because sometimes you don't catch everything right away the first time, and just having two looks at it, I was like, how is this guy not locked up? Like, for him abusing his wife and his son like that, and he just so badly wants Todoroki to be what he wants him to be, and not let Todoroki be what his son wants to be. And it's crazy. It's like I failed to it's like he failed to get All Might. He failed to surpass All Might, so he feels like, okay, then I'm just gonna do it through my son. And basically it's very similar to, if anyone's watched Creed 2, that was a story. Ivan Drago he failed to defeat Rocky, and in Creed 2 now his son's grown up, and it's kind of like he just wants his son to get revenge against Rocky's new protege, Creed, Adonis Creed, and that's basically what it is. Now in this whole thing, this is why Todoroki basically doesn't want to even use the fire side of his quirk. He only wants to use the ice side, and it gets really bad to where his mother is supportive, but she ends up going crazy beyond it. She can't take the abuse anymore. She can't take seeing her son like that anymore, and she, you know, I forget who she was talking, whether it was her mother or someone. She's talking to a family or friend member, and she's like, you know, Todoroki, every time I see her, I see him, I see that monster. And poor Todoroki, as a kid, he hears this, because like his mom is like, looks like between his two parents, that's the one that has the real love for her. And I'm not saying this is right here, but she gets so angry, she splashes the hot boiling water, which I believe gives him that burn, so it drove her insane. And then for real, Endeavor, I guess it's implied he beat her so bad he put her in the hospital for that, and his reason is saying, you know, I dare her ever take my creation and do this. Like, it's just, man, the guy really grew up in a really messed up household, and like I said, I'm wondering, how is Endeavor not in jail for all this? It's crazy. But this plays a role into Todoroki being the way he is, and it makes it a lot more understandable for why he wants to do this. Now, I said we were going to have some logic issues earlier when it comes to Midoriya. So, from a logic standpoint, let's face it, in terms of Midoriya, if he's having family issues, just go in for the kill, go take him out. That's not his fault that he's holding back. So on one hand, it's like, yeah, take advantage, go in. You know, often in like the UFC, if you have a fighter who's basically their head's not in the game, and the other fighter is completely focused, and they take advantage of that, and you like, that fighter didn't fight like he usually fights, you know, they're not gonna hold back, because they want to win that championship, they want to advance. And that's what this was about. It's not his problems has nothing to do with Midoriya, but in typical Saiyajin fashion, where you want to be able to fight them at their best, that's what he wants. He's like, he wants you to use he wants Midoriya fights with Todoroki and wants him like, give me your best so I know what I can do here. So logically it didn't make sense, but as my stepfather stated, he agreed. Logically it didn't make sense when we were watching this, but he did state that basically there is a bigger purpose here from a story standpoint, and that's that he wants to motivate Todoroki, and I think there's more incentive to do that here, because the first guy he fought was Shinso. He didn't really know that well, but Todoroki, this is someone who he's been in class with, someone who he's been at war with. Their lives were on the line, and when you go through war with someone and you go through near-death experiences together and you both come out clean, you know, there's a bond there, you know, they're war warriors, almost war brothers, you can almost say like that. So he would be more implied to help them out there, and that's the thing about this fight. And I thought visually spectacular was great. Midoriya still thinking, going all out, you know, basically breaking his arm, doing everything he can to survive Todoroki. And it's clear that if Todoroki went at 100% instead of 50%, he could have murked Midoriya. And of course, in the end, Midoriya nearly actually has him beat when he's almost about to unleash his smash on on Todoroki, but instead he takes the time to encourage him. And for a brief moment, Todoroki ends up using his flame, and to almost about to go all out. And Endeavor's excited; he's going crazy. And the commentator's like, "Whoa, okay, maybe quite a supportive father we see." And Midoriya does the big smash at the end, and they're about to do that big epic collide. You guys that have watched Naruto and Naruto, you know, Naruto. Sasuke! Almost kind of like that type of clash. And I think Midnight steps in. I forget which if it was Midnight or someone else, but I think she did step in because it was a spectacular explosion, but it could have wiped everyone out possibly or caused great harm. And once again, Midoriya, like Uraraka, ends up falling down and goes out of place. I mean, he exerts himself and is completely injured. But Todoroki learned something through the fight, and that Midoriya made to him. He's like, you know, just because that's your father's power and that's what your father wants you to do or something like that, you know, it's your power. What you do is what you make of its own or with it. And it's basically saying, like, you know, think of it like this. Some people can't help the situations that they're born into. You might have been born in a bad environment, but you don't have to become a product of that bad environment, because there are people who go like, you know, I don't want to hang around this negativity. I want to surround myself with the positive things that I need in life. And that's what he's trying to basically tell Todoroki, that just because he's your father and he wants you to use your powers for this, you be who you are, and you use that power for what you wanted to use it for and not what he wanted to use it for. And he makes that statement clear to him when Todoroki comes face with his father, says, no, you know, I didn't do that because of you. And I thought this was well done from a story standpoint. Like I said, it did have some logic issues with Midoriya, but I thought it was all really incredible from an emotional standpoint. Very well done, and definitely I think a very powerful message to get out of it. You know, basically, you don't got to be what he wants you to be just because you have his power. You make it what you want to. And that's all I got to say. I knew we would have a lot to say about this fight, so I'm interested to hear your perspective on this fight.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear what you thought, because I didn't think at all. I don't think like you did. Like with Izuku, I think he won the battle he wanted to win. As in, for him, what is being a hero? It's helping people. So it's you want to be top, you want to be number one. You empathize with people and you care for people, right? Mm-hmm. And I think they say it on later on in the episode. I'm not sure if it's after the battle or whatever, but he's saying like interfering in things that technically isn't your business. That's what heroes do. Yep. And I can't remember who said it or who, but it's just something that resonated with me. I think it may have been All Might, because he was it All Might? Yeah, okay.
He did bring that up. That Midoriya was willing to put that aside in battle.
So for me, I think Izuku's like, his whole thing was like, okay, well, obviously, you know, he didn't go in it like, I want to lose. He went in it with like, there's a bigger battle here that I want to fight, and I'm going to fight it. So his thing was like, Shoto, use all of your power. And Shoto's like, no, I'm just going to use like ice. And obviously, I think Shoto must have hinted or something to Izuku earlier when they were talking, sort of like, obviously, like, things aren't the greatest with his dad, and he knows that Shoto doesn't want to use that fire side because he doesn't want to be associated with his dad. He kind of wants to throw that part away. But then Izuku's like, no, this is a part of you. Like, and in his way, Izuku was being a really great hero. Like, he's like, you're struggling with this, and this is something you're holding on to. You can't get past it. I want you to let it go, and I want you to be who you are. So to me, Izuku won the bigger battle. The bigger battle was like, it's your power, like, Todoroki, use it, you know? So for him, like, Todoroki ended up using it in the end, you know? And he held it back as long as he could, but then he ended up using it, and he was sort of grateful to Izuku, where it's like, you're right, this is a part of me. But then obviously, like, he like, even in later battles, he was like, I don't know, like, he's hesitant to use that fire side. But in that moment, he let it go and he was his full self. And I think with Izuku, he wasn't like, I want to be number one in this whole tournament. He's like, I want to be the greatest hero. And I think he won that. He won being the greatest hero in this tournament, because he's like, I'm going to put somebody else above myself. The same thing. A hero can stay at home and be safe and not have to go into danger, but they put other people above themselves, and that's what made them a hero, right? So with Izuku, he put Todoroki above himself, and he's like, listen, I don't care if I don't win this. I'm going to win it as long as I can help you. Like, this is my win, you know? And so for me, I just thought like, wow, Izuku, like I looked at it and like, that's what he went in being like, I'm going to give it my all, but you know what? I'm going to give it my all to help you, not just beat you down. Because I'm thinking like, you know, like had it been Bakugo was just like, I want to win. But Izuku's like, I'm going to help you. And I think that's what makes him a great hero. So just this whole fight, I was so happy with. Like, even though it ended in a way I didn't expect. Like, I thought, no, Izuku's the main character. Like, for sure he's going to win. I didn't see it going that way. And I loved it even more. Like, I was like,
did you
wow,
want that round 2 between Bakugo and Midoriya on a big stage?
Yeah, I wanted to see what, I'm like, you know, beat that egotistical little, you know. Because obviously I started liking Bakugo, but I was still like, nah, that kid needs to be taught a lesson. Like, he's such a bully, he's whatever. You know, so I wanted to see that fight with Izuku and Bakugo. But I liked the way it turned out, where it was like, you know, obviously Shoto, if he went at 100% power, like Izuku would have been done right away. Like, especially in this like moment in the anime, Izuku still didn't really know like how does he use more than, you know, 1% without hurting himself. Like, he really didn't know what else to do. So I like the way that this turned out, and I just thought that Izuku was the greatest hero in this match.
Yeah, and you know that's the reason why I say I was torn when I originally first watched this, and I was like, oh, just that's his issues, and then but you know, like I said, me and my stepfather watched it my second time around. You know, like he said, because he was kind of logic issue at the beginning, but he's like he did make it, as you were saying, there was a bigger point to this battle, and I agree on that standpoint that yes, indeed, Midoriya did win because he did win in that fight, even if he put aside his goals, and it's a great contrast to what we'll see in the in one of the later Todoroki fights as we go on in the podcast here. So I definitely will bring that up. And I thought it's interesting. Everybody was talking about how reckless Midoriya, and just watching the series, people were talking about how reckless Midoriya is, and it was like, you know, he had no choice. What else could he do? He wouldn't have lasted that long. But I'll save that for when we continue on to the next arc, because we finally nipped that in the bud as far as what Midoriya can do and start in terms of learning to control his power. But but early on, I just couldn't stand when people would be talking about Midoriya, you're so reckless. It's like, your guys are telling him he's reckless, but nobody's showing him not how to be reckless. Like
no one's helping him.
Yes, that was that. Thank you. No, that's exactly why it always rubbed me the wrong way. I could not stand by talking about, you're too reckless. Well, show him how not to be reckless. But this gets taken care of in the next arc. Did you feel that way before we move on, though, about like people early on being so critical in the show, being like, you're too reckless, Midoriya, but it was all he could do.
And I remember even Recovery Girl's like, you shouldn't use all of your power again like that. You're gonna get hurt, okay? But like, what else could he have done? Like, he's doing his best. Like, and again, it's tough because it's like All Might, as much as he tried to mentor Izuku, he doesn't really teach him how to use it. Like, right. It's just like, oh, you'll keep training and you'll get better. But about this whole like, oh, use your 2% power or 100% power, like, he had no control over it and he was learning, you know, but there was nobody around to really help him. It was just like, hey, you really shouldn't go all out. You're going to get hurt. Okay. But if he doesn't go out, like, he's dead. Like, what do you mean? Like, he has to. So yeah, it's just kind of like,
it's terrible. It's terrible advice. What So says you're not very good at doing that, and that's all. That's not criticism. Tell me why you feel I'm not good at doing this, and tell me or maybe direct me in ways that I can learn. So that way, it's not very good constructive criticism.
Yeah, that's like, imagine a director, if you're voice acting, he's like, that's terrible. Do it better. Okay, but like, how? What was bad about it? How can I improve? Don't just be like, stop doing that. Oh, all right, but like, right. Hey, you shouldn't use 100% of your power. Okay, but what? So like, right, what do I do? So there was never anybody to really advise him, even though All Might was sort of his mentor. Even All Might couldn't really tell him, like, I don't know. So
right.
Oh yeah,
I look forward to revisiting this in the next arc.
Yeah.
But moving on now to Iida versus Ibara, basically the girl with
Ibara,
the tree
maybe?
hair. So this is another short, quick fight. It was the total opposite of what I was saying. Unlike, was it Denki earlier? Iida was in it to win it, and he understood. He had his game in the right place, and he was able to use his powers from his calves, where he's able to use ultra speed and push her right out, just out of bounds. And I love how respectful he is at the end. He's like, "I'm sorry, but I have to win," and I just thought it was really cool. But a great contrast showing you someone's someone who's got their head in the game versus someone who's not in their head in the game. And I think that's about all we'll see of Tree Girl head from here. Anything you like to add about this fight?
Yeah, not much. Like you said, I just like how Tenya is. At first I didn't really care for his character because I'm like, oh, he's like that class president type. Like, hey, you guys shouldn't be doing this. And hey, what are you doing? And he just seemed like too much. But then going on, I just like how respectful he can be. So yeah, it was just cute where he's like, sorry about this. I have to win. So sorry.
Yeah, it's like the nice way of saying it's not personal. It's just business.
Yeah. It's just, exactly. Perfect.
All right, and then the next match was Tokoyami versus Mina Ashido. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Mina Ashido.
All right, good. Got it right this time. But so we just saw he was much more ferocious, and it just seemed like his shadow powers just kept getting stronger and stronger. And a lot of people in the crowd, including his fellow classmates, are like, man, this guy's so strong. How do you overcome him? And we'll get more into that later. But I thought he made short work of her, didn't give her a chance to use her acid. And like I said, I thought the arc was really good at developing Tokoyami. Once again, just getting him out. Anything you want to add about that fight?
Not much, honestly. Like I mentioned before, I just like that they add these kind of fights because it's not just like, okay, here's Izuku and Shoto, and then, okay, we're going to skip to the next important one. It's like they show the characters as they're fighting. And like you said, it's sort of like, it got Tokoyami out there. You see oh, that's how he uses his powers. He's actually a smart guy, and he has a potential to be a good hero. So yeah, it was just nice seeing those little filler fights in between.
Mm-hmm. And then the last match of that round was Bakugo versus Kirishima, and of course they were friends, and he's one of the few people that can get along with Bakugo. And what I like about this fight is that Kirishima, he ain't scared of nobody, and he's not gonna let Bakugo punk him out. He was saying hope you're ready for me, and Bakugo's getting angry, and he's like, Bakugo can't get in his head. And he, unlike Uraraka, he was actually able to get pretty close to Bakugo because of his quirk being so hardened, so was able to be a little bit more resistance towards his explosives. But once again, Bakugo's fighting, even though not just his quirk, but his fighting ability is what overcame Kirishima. So once again, I just love how Bakugo studied the fight. He studies his opponents. He was reminding me at this point a lot like a UFC fighter, John Jones, and basically the thing is what John Jones does in his fights is he starts off the fights studying his opponent, just kind of feeling them out, and then once he realizes what the fight's going to be like and gets a read on them, then John Jones just completely takes over, and it's just amazing to watch his fights. And that's what Bakugo's like. He's like, okay, I'm figuring you out. All right, got your weakness. Bam, you're out of there. Moving on to the next round. But yeah, I thought it was really cool. What did you think?
I like how you put it, bam, you're out of there, you're done. I found, but I don't know, tell me why I barely remembered this fight. I think it just happened so quickly.
Yeah, it was one of those quick fights. They didn't put a lot of effort into it. Yeah,
because in my head, I'm like, well, obviously Bakugo's going to win. Kirishima, he did well, but he's not going to win. And it was just over as quickly as it started, I felt like. So, yeah, like you said, it was just cool seeing them because, he is one of the only people who is able to get along with Bakugo. So it was nice seeing them fight. It almost seemed friendly even though they were serious, So yeah, I just liked seeing it. But other than that, you knew for sure it was going to be Bakugo, you're done,
Yeah, obviously, I think it was no question. Like we say a lot of in professional wrestling, when the storyline's going somewhere we're going, usually we're like, okay, it's obvious which way this is going. And take it back to My Hero Academia, it was clear where the story was going to be leading to here for the finals. So in the semifinals now, you have Tenya take on Todoroki, and Todoroki resorts back to making sure he only uses ice, and he kind of pretty much made short work of Iida. Iida did his best to try and use his speed, but it just wasn't enough. Yeah. But a great showing for Iida, and I like that it wasn't. I like that Todoroki still was struggling with how to go about using his powers because of his issues. I like that it wasn't the Midoriya. He did the Midoriya fight. He's like, yes, I understand. And he's like, now I'll use both my powers. I like that he was still struggling. He mentioned that he only used it because he kind of got caught in the moment. So I love that he's still struggling. And I think that's a great way to show that, because I think a lot of times when people have issues that didn't happen overnight, it's a good way to show that in life, it's not going to be overnight to fix those issues, but the fight with Midoriya was like the thing that opened the door, that kind of got him thinking, showing him exactly that, hey, this is the way to go, and now he can just slowly progress. It was like that first step, and that's what I really liked it. So much props to Kohei Horikoshi for putting that type in the story. I think it makes it a lot more relatable for people who might go through similar issues that Todoroki. It shows them like, okay, I might not get through this overnight, obviously, but there is a stepping stone. It is a process. Anything you want to add on this fight?
I completely agree with what you said, where I really liked that, because you've seen it in so many other stories, like, now the hero's okay and he can use that power and he goes forward. But it's like, okay, it was a breakthrough. And honestly, that's what life is, where it's like, if you can't walk, crawl. But the point is to keep moving forward. You can't just be like, oh, well, I'm not even going to try to get better. Or opposite, you can't be like, that's it, I'm done. Starting tomorrow, I'm a different person. Like, you can't just completely change. And that's how, even people, and it can be like an addiction to something. And it doesn't have to just be drugs. It could be something small. Like, listen, like, I am addicted to coffee, but you know what? Like, starting tomorrow, never again. If you can break away slowly, if you're like, okay, and tomorrow I'm not going to have 5 cups of coffee. I'm just going to have 1 or 3 or whatever is dialing it back for you. And opposite with Todoroki, it's like, all right, I used my power and that was a breakthrough. But he can't just change overnight. It's not like, now I can use this power and it's totally mine. Of course, he's still going to have that trauma where he thinks, like, maybe when he tries to use his powers, he thinks of how his mother had that reaction. Like, oh, you're like him. And she threw the hot water on him and everything. So there's a little bit of trauma that goes along with that. So, his messed up feelings about his father and who he is, it's not going to go, it didn't start overnight. It happened like as he grew up, and it's not going to go away overnight either. So like you said, I really like that they showed like, hey, it's okay to just take that baby step. And opposite, like if you're like, all right, I'm gonna quit coffee, and you had one day where you just broke and you drank as much coffee as that like would fit in, you're just like jittery, and like if you had that moment, that's okay. The whole point is to get back on track. Like maybe you got off a little bit, but just get right back on track. Keep going.
But the thing now is that you have the knowledge of how to get it track as opposed to before you found out. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I mean, because I keep thinking it goes back to, because obviously I'm a Christian, so I think of like, listen, the whole point is to be going towards, like, you want to be walking down that narrow road and you want to be looking at God. And if you mess up and you sin and you go the wrong way, that doesn't mean, oh, that's it, like, I'm a sinner, let's just go for it, like, I'm done, like, count me out. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, get back on track and keep going and like follow that target, and keep your eyes like forward. And that's what I'm saying. Like, so that's what I think of, where it's just like, I really like that it showed like Todoroki, where it's like, hey, like, yeah, I got that breakthrough, but I'm going to fall back and I'm going to fall back into my old ways. But it just shows the beginning of character development with that. So I was just, I really liked it.
Yeah, I really liked it. I love your analogy. Yeah. And the thing is, we're gonna go to the semifinals now. The remaining one. Tokoyami versus Bakugo. So they had built up Tokoyami. It looked like there's almost what is the way to overcome, his shadow, the shadow quirk and everything. And I was mentioning earlier, Bakugo, he's so well at figuring out his opponents and analyzing it, and he found out that and I think this is where they revealed that basically when there is it best works in the dark. So if there's too much light, then there's not much it can do, and it gets afraid. And Bakugo realizes using explosions up close will create a big bright light, and he just won't be able to get into this fight. And Bakugo takes down Tokoyami. I thought this was great the way it did. I'm glad that Tokoyami got a great showing through the whole entire arc, and it really just goes to show you how great of a fighter Bakugo is, and how he has kept his head in the game for this tournament. That's what I took out of it. And it was a great way of knowing the the strategy, and we will eventually see this play into later about the whole darkness and the shadow and it's night and in the third season. But right now, though, I thought the way this fight was great. What did you think overall?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you definitely touched on it, where I was thinking, this fight just taught me how much smarter Bakugo is than I gave him credit for. I was like, no, he's like, I'm going to win, and he's arrogant and whatever. But then this whole entire arc, really, where I'm like, wow, I think I looked at Bakugo differently. And obviously, the fight with Uraraka really opened my eyes, where I'm like, wow, I really have been looking at him wrong. This further just had me be like, wow, he's actually smart. Like you said, he was looking, okay, this is his weakness. Let me use my explosions, this light and all this stuff. So he's much smarter than I gave him credit for. And that's what I noticed in this one. And it was so cute to see. I forget, what was Tokoyami, Dark Shadow, I think he calls it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, when Dark Shadow gets oh, and it's like crying almost because it doesn't like the light and stuff. So it was just a cute little moment from what I remember. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I definitely liked seeing Bakugo use his smarts too. It's not could he just kept exploding oh yeah, I'm gonna fight him, I'm gonna go at him hard. Yeah, he could have, but he used his brain, where he's like, hey, what's he scared of? Light. Boom, here's some light. So I really liked him kind of using his head there. So yeah, it further in this moment, I was more like, okay, Bakugo's all right. I started warming up even more, so I liked it.
Awesome. And great. I'm glad you also enjoyed Tokoyami getting some great character development. And now we move on to the main event, the final round. This is what everything has been building up to this arc, and kind of I do like that there was a twist here that it showed that Todoroki was going to is in the finals as opposed to Midoriya. I admit I would have loved to seen a Bakugo in Midoriya round 2. We'll get that later on when we get to that podcast. But yeah, Katsuki Bakugo versus Shoto Todoroki. Alrighty, I gotta be honest. Once again, like the Midoriya fight, you have to look at it from a story standpoint and the logic of a fighting standpoint. In the perfect circumstance, the right circumstance, this should have been an all-out fight. Todoroki, 100% power. Bakugo, 100%. Not holding back. Oh, man. This should have been an all-time classic. Like on paper.
Everybody would have died, in the audience, if this was 100%. They'd be dead.
But on paper, this looks like, this is gonna be epic. But Todoroki was still struggling with his family issues, and you see that you brought up earlier. I said we would bring it up earlier when we talked about the Midoriya and the Midoriya and Todoroki fight, and showing kind of the difference. Midoriya wants to be in that top spot, but if he can help someone along the way, he wants to do that as well. Bakugo, on the other hand, he wants to be in that top spot, and that's that's really all he cares about here. So that was a great contrast there, and you see it in this fight. So Bakugo really wants to make sure Todoroki's going all out. He's seen the power that Todoroki can do, and I love that he tells him that, just because you've got some daddy issues or mama's issues, don't let that hold you back. Because he's like, I don't give a damn about your your family issues. You just go all out, okay, or something like that. That's not the real line, but that's basically the dimension he wanted.
Paraphrasing.
Yeah. So, and the fight that we get is pretty darn cool for what we do get. His ice powers versus Bakugo using his explosions. Like, these two are going at it. And you just kind of like, what happens when fire meets fire, but we don't get to see it? And you have Midoriya in the crowd, cheering on Todoroki to use his powers, go all out. And you got Bakugo getting angry that Midoriya is looking at him like, trying to encourage him, like as if Midoriya is looking down on him, but no, it has nothing to do with that. So it really is a great visual for what we do get. And of course, in the end, when Todoroki feels that he's gonna go ahead and use his full power, he creates his big flame, and Bakugo starts, he does a technique where I guess he like spins into like a tornado, and I really loved how he used the tornado to kind of the wind, basically manipulate the wind to blow away his ice attacks and everything. And they're about to clash. You think you're gonna get this epic clash between Bakugo and Todoroki, but Todoroki at the last minute realizes he can't bring himself yet to use his father's power, so in the last second he lets go of his flame, and Bakugo nails him. And I don't remember if one of the pro heroes stepped in, because it was going to be close to where death could have been a possibility, but when all the smoke clears...
Oh yeah, Midnight did.
Okay, all right, yeah, good. Thanks for reminding me, because I had forgot.
Yeah, she did, because she was like, because Bakugo still went hard on him. Because like after he got Shoto down, he was like, no, get up, like this isn't a real win. What are you doing? And he like pulled him, and he was just... And she's just like, okay, we need to stop it. So she released that smoke or whatever, and Bakugo fell asleep. Yeah, that's what happened.
Because he was out of bounds and everything. Put them both to sleep.
Well, yeah, it was already over.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you won. He's like, no, this isn't real win. Like, get up. And then she's like, all right, calm down. Like, here's some smoke.
And then we get the ending celebration on the podiums. Iida, of course, had left, but I think him and Tokoyami went to 3. They scored 3rd place, and we'll get into Iida just a moment here as we wrap up in this podcast. And then of course Todoroki ends up getting 2nd, and Bakugo ends up getting number 1. But Bakugo is such a mess. They had to chain him, and they had to chain him like you would have think he was some monstrous person. They had to bound him by his legs, his arm, and they had to cut his mouth, shut his mouth, and even Bakugo's, even All Might tries to hand him, put the metal on his head, and he's like, don't even put that thing on me, All Might. He said, I didn't get a real win, and he's angry. But the true fact of the matter is, Bakugo, he kept his head in the game. Bakugo kept his eyes on the prize. Unlike everyone else, he didn't let family issues get to him. He didn't try to help save others like Midoriya did. Bakugo, he was the one that stayed focused this whole entire thing. His mind was in the right. He played the strategies right. Like, as a fighter, he rightfully earned to be there. But just like our good old Saiyajin friends over in the Dragon Ball world, it's like Vegeta when he found out Goku had the Super Saiyajin 3 transformation, and he's all angry, and he's like, he said, you actually allowed me to believe I could beat you. And that's kind of what it reminded me here. Bakugo's like, knowing that, Todoroki had the fire cork to use, he didn't use it, so he's livid, he's upset. And on one hand, I will say I respect that he wants to know he's beating you at your best, but at the end of the day, that's what he's got. He has no responsibility over what Todoroki's going in his life. He has no responsibility over what Midoriya decides to do. He can only focus on what he himself has done, and he earned it. He really did. did. So he made a huge thing, and I think it was interesting, and we'll talk more about this in the arc, but I think like even though he won, nobody wanted to, I think he didn't rank or something highest because everybody saw how nasty his attitude is, and that's the reason why one of the I think the Gene's hero picked up because he didn't like his attitude. But,
the Genist or whatever.
Yeah, but we'll talk more about that later. But I did think this was hilarious. It's too bad that I guess he couldn't get his own ego out the way to realize that hey, at the end of the day, you did what you had to do. You're not responsible for what these others are going through. But Bakugo couldn't see that. So what was your thoughts on this? Bakugo winning number one in his reaction.
You kind of touched on it already where I like where, with Todoroki, it was like, yeah, he won, but it wasn't a real win, you know? And I like that Bakugo kind of had that where he was like, listen, I don't care what's going on in the background of your life. Like, fight your all and I'm going to fight my all and then we'll see who wins. And cause if it was just all about winning, Bakugo would have been like, yeah, ha, loser, you couldn't get over your own emotions and I won and whatever. But he was mad. He's like, no, get up. This isn't a real win. Hey, you hear me? Like, he was just mad. Like, no, I wanted to fight each other at our all because how can I know I was really the best if you just like forfeited? Like, you just, you couldn't use your father's power, so you stopped using it. He doesn't want to be the best by default. He wants to be the best because he earned it. And in this fight, I thought more about Bakugo where I'm like, I have been looking at him different. I've been always looking at him like, oh, he's egotistical, he's a bully, he's like this. But there's actually something in him where he's more like, no, I want to be the best because I earned it, not because you gave it to me or you gave up. And that even in this scene, I started having more respect for him. But then that being said, oh man, the second it like cut to like, because it shows all of them. Like, okay, Iida's 4 and Tokoyami is number 3 and Todoroki's 2. And then it shows Bakugo number 1 and it shows him like I remember it panned up from like his feet and then it went up. You know, and it was like showing him, and he's just like.
I think they even animated like his eyes to be completely white. He didn't even have any pupils.
Yeah, like he looked so feral. Like he didn't look like a human at all. And he's like, oh, don't put that on me. Like he's just so angry. And I remember I literally had to pause and laugh, and then rewind, watch it again, laugh again, pause. Like it was just such a funny moment to me. I didn't know what I was expecting. I thought he'd be sitting there kind of like. Oh, you know, like his arms crossed and he's mad, but I was not expecting what I saw. And it was just so like, and then, so obviously like, you look at him like if this was your first time ever seeing Bakugo, you're like, dang, that guy's nuts. And of course, even then I was like, dude, you're so crazy. What are you doing? But that to me just shows how passionate he is, where he's like, no, I want to be the best. We're going to finish this. We're going to fight. We're going to whatever. Like he didn't want to relent at all, where he was just so headstrong, where he was like, no, I want to be the best because I earned it. This isn't fair. Like it showed to me his passion for being, you know, the number one hero. But he definitely shows it differently than like Izuku. Izuku's like, I want to be the best, but it's like soft. And Katsuki's like in your face, you know. And I started liking him even more. And even though he reacted so crazy, I kind of understood him more, you know. So this whole fight was just it was fun to watch, and it was just really funny.
For sure. So let's come to two of the biggest closing moments, I think, of this arc. I don't know if it starts in the first episode of the next arc, but I'll just say right quick, Todoroki, I really like how after this, he realizes and understands that, you know what, in order to reach peace with the situation, he has to go make things right. And he wants to go, he goes to visit his mother and be like, you know, let's go ahead and make this right and have this conversation. And I think that was really good, really powerful, because at least what he got out of the Midoriya fight, he knows, like, you know, I don't understand fully what I have to do, but I at least have the path now to sort of know where I need to go. And the first direction is to make peace with my mother and forgive her for what happened there. And I really like that they end this arc on that standpoint with Todoroki. So it's kind of just showing you that, okay, he's headed down the right path to getting these family issues taken care of. What'd you think about that?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. And I mentioned it before, where during this arc, I was already like, oh, Todoroki, I like him. And he was close to being like my number one favorite for a time, you know. And it was during this where I was just like, wow, you know, like I liked seeing that, where it's like, you know, it's difficult to move forward if you don't deal with if you still have that hurt feeling, if you think about your mom or you think about your dad and you still have this hurt feeling, you can't just be like, I'll ignore it and I'll just get better. Like, you have to deal with why you feel that way and what you're going through. So I like when he gets back and, his sister's like, oh, you're going to visit her? Really? Like, what? Like, it was such a shock to her, and then when he goes and sees his mom and he's like, hi mom, sorry, I haven't been here. I think he ends up saying that. I hope I'm not just like making that. I think he was like, oh, sorry, it's been a while, and he saw his mom, and I was just glad that happened. Like, cause like you said, it's like, in order to get over your feeling, you sort of have to deal with what you're feeling, and and I was just, it made it sad. Cause it's like, almost he had nothing. To me, when I look at it, he sort of had nothing to apologize for. He's this little kid put in this position, and all you had was your mom, but your mom can't stand to look at you because half of you is your dad, but that's not your fault. None of this was your fault. And her throwing like boiling hot water in your face, even that wasn't your fault. So nobody would have really blamed you if you didn't want to go visit her or whatever. But he kind of saw that, listen, the main problem was not, like, yeah, my mom threw this hot water in my face, but the main problem was not her. It was the trauma she dealt with because of my dad. So obviously his daddy issues were warranted too. But even then, if you want to be like a better hero or a better person, you have to deal with your hatred for your father even then. Because, so yeah, just basically I'm glad that he ended up talking with his mom. Even though it wasn't his fault, I'm glad he sort of like was like, hey, sorry, it's been a long time. And and I just really like that, like, you can see him moving forward with his life, not just like, oh, I hate my dad, I want to beat my dad. It's like, no, okay, let's take a baby step. Even if tomorrow it's not going to be better, this one step could make my tomorrow a better place, So yeah, I'm glad that all happened too.
Yeah, it reminds you almost like, I really can't think I remember the Lion King saying, but I know where he like told Simba, Rafiki told Simba, like, you can either run from it or face it head on. That's not exactly the phrase.
Well, he's like, because he hit him with the bat, and he was like, ow, that hurt. And he's like, oh yeah, the past can hurt, but you can either like run from it, or no. Well, you could either learn from it or cry about it. Shoot, now I can't
learn
remember.
From it, remember. Yeah, I can't remember the paraphrasing, but the point of that line was he was telling Simba that you basically could sweep something under the rug, or you can deal with it head on. And that's what we saw.
Deal with it head on and learn from it. Yeah, that's what. I gotta look it up now later.
Right. And then we're gonna end here with once again, I love cliffhangers. I like that the last arc ended by saying that, okay, there's a greater force there in the League of Villains, and what we end up here is we get the start of what's going to be the next arc. The hero killer, who we eventually learned his name is, I think his name was Stain or something like that. And so basically he attacks Iida's brother during the actual the rest of the festival, sports festival, and leaves him for dead in the alley. And the arc ends with Iida going to the hospital, seeing his brother basically just barely hanging on in critical condition. And this sets up for the hero killer who's looking out, and he basically is out to destroy the heroes and only feels that All Might is the one that can destroy him. So I thought this was a great introduction. I will say, I don't know if they only showed him as a shadow presence, but I don't know if you got this impression. When I first saw him, I was like, this guy kind of looks like a Ninja Turtle to me because he has no nose.
Yes. Because when I looked at him, I'm like, he looks super familiar, and I can't tell why. But even the way, like, somehow how he's hunching, and like you can see his eyes are like, masked. Yeah, that's totally.
I wonder if Horikoshi was inspired from that. But hey, by no means, I really like that villain, and overall, we'll save that for the next podcast. Anything you want to add on about how his introduction is set up at the end of this arc?
Well, I think my first impression of Stain, he just seemed psycho, like completely like, I'm gonna like, and the fact that his name is Stain, it's like stain the world with blood or something. Like I just had this like, he's nuts. He's like a crazy, villain. But yeah, just seeing it was definitely different seeing Iida so shaken up. And kind of sad because he looked up to his brother.
Right.
So it definitely made me interested for what was coming next.
Yeah, and I love some cliffhangers there. And that being said, we went almost nearly 2 hours. So, Rebecca Beck, it has been an absolute joy breaking down My Hero Academia with you. This is where you have the floor now to give your plugs.
Okay, well, obviously I'm Rebecca Beck, and I have a YouTube that's Rebecca Beck, and my Twitter is Momoiro Monkey, so that's MOMOIRO Monkey. Instagram is Rebpeku, so that's REBPECU, and then I have another YouTube that's Rebecca Pecura. That's mostly just like regular videos, not like podcasts or anything like that. So yeah, check them out.
And her social media links will be in the description below. And here are my plugs. So subscribe here to my YouTube channel, followed by hitting the notification bell so that way you're notified as soon as my content's released. Make sure to also like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter and Instagram, all of which is at SunGoshuaku. And also, if you're a WWE fan or a Dragon Ball fan, make sure to go ahead and check out the other podcast discussions I have here on my channel regarding those. And also check out my upcoming trailer this week for Battle of Deception, a short film that I've been working on for several years now, which is pretty much inspired from anime. That being said, guys, we'll be back soon with a My Hero Academia review of the Hero Killer arc. Until then, take care.